Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the March 12th, 2025 meeting of the Auburn School Committee to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll start down here on my right with introductions.
Dan Poisson, Ward 5.
Quinn Gormley, Ward 4.
Pam Hart, Ward 2.
Pamela Albert, at large.
Sue Doris, Superintendent.
Pat Gaudier, Ward 3.
Jay Rich, at large.
Adam Platt, City Council Representative.
Connor Dufour, Student Representative.
Amanda Kuchar, Business Manager.
Scott Anier, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. Corin McGuigan and Calvin Vincent could not be here tonight. I'm going to start tonight with the approval of our consent agenda, which includes the approval of tonight's agenda as well as the minutes of the March 5th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion? Oh, sorry, it also includes this, the approval of the certified contract of Brian Michaud, special education teacher at AMS. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Pat, do I have a second? Adam? All those in favor? Motion carries. I'll now open it up to public participation if anyone from the public would like to address the school committee. All right. Seeing none, we will move on to our presentation tonight about the Auburn School Department operating budget, cost centers 2, 3, 5, and curriculum and instruction.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome our Director of Student Services, Laura Shaw, up to the table up here, and she is going to start us off tonight with Cost Center 2, Special Education. And we have Mr. Rod Boutot as well. He is our Assistant Director of Student Services.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. So tonight I will be talking about Cost Center 2, which, as you know, is special education. What I'll do is I will start with just some statistics for you to look at and consider, and talk a little bit about the purpose of special ed, and then I will be talking about the major budget drivers for the increases in this cost center, and then I will talk a little bit about some measures that we are taking to try and recoup or mitigate some of the cost that goes into this cost center. So if you look at this, all right, I'm going to do it, okay. If you look at this slide really just explains what special education is. I have this slide in every presentation that I do each year, but it is specially designed instruction with no cost to parents to meet the unique needs of a student with a disability. And that is done through a student's individual education plan. We use, as the buildings do, we use October 1st counts just to be consistent. And in our October 1st count, we had 649 students who had IEPs, who were receiving special ed and related services. This is about 20.9% of the population. The state average is 21, so we're pretty close to the state average. There has been an increase in the percentage of special ed students nationally and statewide. Auburn has remained consistent, though. In the last 10 years or so, we've always been slightly above the state average, and now we're pretty much right on. Incidentally, the average percentage of students across the United States is only 15%. This slide shows the breakdown of the educational disability categories that Maine recognizes. And this is really just up there so that you can consider trends. Just some interest, I won't read the whole slide obviously, but as you look at it, some interesting things to consider. Autism, and I've said this every year as well, autism has steadily increased over the last 5 years. In 2019 it was 72, and we are now at 112. Developmental delay has remained consistent. Students identified with an emotional disturbance, which actually was recently changed to emotional disability, has decreased to 41, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. Other categories have remained fairly the same. Intellectual disability is down slightly. Multiple disability has steadily been going down in the last 5 years, and that is due to the state really requiring us to strongly consider which one disability is the disability that's most adversely affecting a student's performance. Other health impairment has increased, as you can see, just generally over the year, although over the years it's down from last year, and most of that, not all, but most of that is under ADHD or ADD. But there are some other medical conditions and things, seizure disorders and things like that that would qualify as other health impairment. Specific learning disability really has been consistent. Speech and language has been consistent, a little high this year. And that brings our total to the 649 students. I did want to go back and just, of course, scientifically, I don't know why the numbers are such that they are. I don't have hard evidence, but things that potentially could impact numbers are, again, really being required to consider which one disability is impacting the most. So that would push numbers away from other disabilities or to other disabilities. So it used to be that we would call a student with potentially who had autism and other health impairment, ADHD, attentional issues, and now they're just autism. Or they might have been multiple disability and now they're just autism. So that may kind of affect the numbers somewhat.
Are you okay with taking questions?
Oh, of course, yep.
During your, yeah, go ahead,
Yes.
Prince.
Two questions. The first is these list of terms, is this the state's terms, not our department's terms?
These are the state terms. The only one that is changed, and I unfortunately didn't change it on the slide, it is no longer emotional disturbance. It's considered emotional disability. And actually, I think hearing impairment is now deaf, hard of hearing. There may be a slight change in that, but the rest remain the same.
Okay. And in terms of the moving towards identifying a single disability, would that result in a student not having access to services specific to another disability?
Great question. Absolutely not. So typically, and this is a conversation we have with parents at meetings, even though, and it's not to say that a student would never be identified, obviously, as a student with multiple disabilities, if the disabilities are so intertwined and it's impossible to determine which impacts more. We call that a concomitant disability. So, and then that would be a multiple disability. But even if a student had an emotional disability but had learning problems in reading and writing, they would have specially designed instruction in those areas as well. And the same with a student if they had a specific learning disability but they were struggling with executive functioning, they would work on that too as well, despite the identification. Good question. So this slide talks about the breakdown of special ed in each school, and as you can see, we have our elementary schools, Auburn Middle School, Edward Little, and Franklin. It just lists the number of teachers and the number of ed techs associated with that school, the total number of students, and again, this is as of October 1st. I can tell you that those numbers have changed, but that was that snapshot in time, and it talks about the programs that are in that school. And at this time, there are no proposed changes in staffing at any of these schools regarding special ed teachers and ed techs. So to talk a little bit more about our district special ed programs, we have what's called the Achieve program, or Junior Achieve, and those programs are at Fairview School, Auburn Middle School, and Edward Little High School. And those programs serve students with autism and intellectual disabilities. So there could be a range of students who are nonverbal or in wheelchairs to, higher functioning, can do some academic skills, but still have some fairly significant needs. We also have what we call programs for social, behavioral, emotional disabilities, and that is our STARS program at Sherwood Heights, the Saddleback program at Auburn Middle School, and the Arches program at Edward Little High School. And those programs serve students who really have some fairly significant levels need for emotional behavioral regulation. Typically, the ratio in those programs is 2 or 3 students to 1 adult. Each of those programs also has a social worker. And then we have, of course, Franklin School, which is an alternative school. That's not a special ed program per se, but does a nice job serving some students who do have IEP services but need that smaller setting. And then if all else fails and we aren't able to provide the least restrictive setting and students aren't making progress, we do have special purpose private school programs that we partner with if they need a higher level or therapeutic services. Okay, getting down to the money. So this slide, it has a lot on it, but each on the left are schools that we partner with for special purpose private schools. And I've just given acronyms for some of them. They are located in Lewiston, Auburn, New Gloucester, Monmouth, Lewiston, I think I said, and Freeport. We have, right now, we have a total of 60 students that are placed in special purpose private schools. That is 1 or 2 less than we did when I did the presentation last year. And you can see each year, and I said this last year, each year we are asked by the Department of Ed to plan on a maximum of a 6% increase in daily tuition rates. So if we look at the top one, ALTC, last year, for 1 student to attend there per day, it was $275.38. This coming year, it will be $292.01, and that is a 6% increase. By Maine state statute, it is not supposed to be above 6% unless there are extraordinary circumstances, and sometimes that happens. So if you look down through the schools, all but 2 had increases to their daily tuition rate. Margaret Murphy, which is MMCC up there, that they were down some, and Okosisko was down. When I just want to point out where there's a star, it says Ren/Spurwink. So I don't know if any of you have heard of the Renaissance School, which was associated with St. Mary's right on Western Ave. We had 5 students there. That is a very, very long-running therapeutic program for young children up to 8th grade. And this year, very unexpectedly, they were taken over by Spurwink. So unfortunately, that was not predicted, and it was a huge increase, 39% increase, because because we had a long-term partner with them and we sort of prepaid slots. We had a contract with them. We got a very reasonable rate, and that went up from $273.55 a day to $380 a day for 5 kids, and there were more days. So that's been a big increase. Every year we have incoming kindergarten students who have special ed, and they come from CDS, Child Development Services. This year I've been informed that we have 4, so those have been added to the budget. Multiple locations, it could be Margaret Murphy, it could be Woodford's, variable, a number of days and tuition. And so when you look at the bottom line, we've budgeted for 64 students for a total of 4.5 million and a little more. That amount will not be shown in your budget books because I offset that number with the local entitlement grant, which I'll talk about in the next slide, by about $600,000. unfortunately, it is a huge budget driver, and we're very aware that this is an expensive cost center that goes up every year. And Mr. Butak case manages all of the students that are in these schools and works tirelessly to get kids back to public school. And he's done amazing this year. We've really had a lot coming through, but then, you get 1 or 2 back into public school and 3 or 4 move in. So it's always a moving target, but we are working on getting them back in our schools. The other biggest budget driver for increases in this cost center is what we call SEED. So this is a really kind of complicated thing that I'll do my best to explain in simple terms. I'm here. I've been in the office for 7 years now, and I think I have it figured out, but explaining it's a little challenging. So when students go to these special purpose private schools, as you saw in the previous slide, they pay a daily tuition rate. We pay that. Anytime a student also gets physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech and language services, BHP services, we call those related services. These schools will bill Maine Care, and Maine Care will pay 62% of the cost. We, the district, have to pay 38% of the cost. And there's so they can either bill what's called Section 28 for kids with autism and intellectual disabilities, or Section 65 for students who have behavioral social disabilities. We had a huge increase last year, 44% increase, which was really devastating. This year, we've been told to take the students that we have and then budget an additional 3%. So as you can see, it's almost double what we're predicting for FY26 is almost double what we paid just 2 years ago. And many of these schools are masters at Maine Care billing. They know how to bill and get reimbursed. So this is another, huge driver that's regrettable, but not just another reason for us to try and get our students back in public school. And that brings me to the last slide. So we know that this cost center is really expensive and always increasing. It's very much on our minds, and we're very mindful of it. And so we've really made an effort to maximize revenue and mitigate as many of the expenses as we can. And these are some of the ways that we're doing this. So we also can bill Maine Care for those related services that we were just talking about: speech, OT, PT. So I pay the providers and our staff and for the platform that we bill through, and they put in their billable hours. And so far this year we've made over $100,000. So that money doesn't go back into cost center 2, but it goes back into the general budget, which is wonderful. State agency clients are students who are in residential placements, foster care, or in DHHS. DHHS is their guardian, and if they have special ed, we can get reimbursement for special education services, transportation, specially designed instruction, case management, things like that. So we bill for that. We seek reimbursement for that monthly. So far, we've received almost $20,000. Transportation. So anytime I go to a conference or webinars or DOE professional development, I always go to the Maine Care sessions to learn more about it. And I learned in October that we can seek reimbursement from Maine Care for transportation for students who are in these special purpose private schools. No one knew this. Lewiston started it, and we followed suit. We started in October, and I think we might finally start billing in a couple weeks. It's been a really crazy process to get this up and going, but it's 100% reimbursement, and it goes right back into the cost center. So it would be wonderful to at least almost break even with this special transportation for kids in those special purpose private schools. So we're well on our way to doing that. I talked about what we call the grant. It's the IDEA grant. That's federal money, just like Title I or the title grants. The last few years, it's been around $1 million, and that money is used to pay for our psychological examiners, some of our social workers, instructional supplies. I offset transportation and tuition lines so it's not all in the general budget. Professional development, anything I can. So, of course, hoping we get that. I'm suspecting if we do it, maybe a little less because our numbers are down, but it's a very nice supplement to the general budget. The next line is age 21 and plus services. So when young adults, students, turn 21, they no longer qualify for Maine care because they're considered adults. So then the special purpose private schools start billing us directly for BHP services. So I learned this year that we can seek reimbursement from the DOE for those services. So it's a little delayed because this $19,382 is, some of it's from last year, but we're like a dog without a bone. I tell Dr. Doris, I'm emailing them every month. I've got my reminder. I'm sending them invoices again. It's a bit of a process, and you really have to be on top of it because they don't just willingly part with it, but we're on it, and I submitted a $36,000 plus or minus, and I might get that next year, who knows.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course, yeah.
How many students fall into that category?
That is right now, so this year because the other one was from last year. So this year, 2 students, so one who graduated and one who's still there that will probably graduate at the end of this year. So because, I think I talked about this last year, but Maine now changed the statute so that students in special ed are eligible for special ed until their 22nd birthday. So now there's a gap between, when they turn 21, and so typically it's a year. So we pay for it up front, but hopefully we get it back with enough, reminders. It's not many, but figure every little bit helps. And then, this is a new thing, and I didn't even tell Dr. Doris this. So CDS is special education for 3 to 5-year-olds and birth to 2, but that's another whole thing. But I became aware that I have 2 special ed pre-K teachers with 2A to 2B certifications, so they can provide specially designed instruction or special ed services. They have been putting billable units into sync, and we haven't been receiving the main care. So that once that gets back up and going, that should be a substantial, I'm guessing at least $50,000 for a year and possibly more. So that's another avenue that we are trying to get up and going. Again, we used to do it years ago, but I guess we haven't done it for a while, so we're going to pick it back up. So those are some things that we're doing, sometimes in small ways, to try and mitigate, the extra cost of special ed. We are also, it's not on this slide, but we have programs like Achieve or the behavior programs, that if we had the right combination of certified staff, we could bill for BHP services. But we don't have that combination now, but that's something we're trying to figure out in the next few years to make sure we have clinicians in the right places and BHPs in the right places and things like that. So maybe more to come next year on this slide. So any questions?
Just so I understand, the seed costs in here, is that applicable to the 64 students on the prior slide for the private school?
That is the seed cost for the 64 students, in addition to their daily tuition rate.
So basically, about 10% of the budget for the whole district accounts to 64 students. Is that accurate?
I'd have to do the math, but it's
Significant
pretty
amount.
expensive, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Actually,
So to piggyback on that, and this is something that I've asked in the past, as far as like a cost analysis of what if we had, instead of having to have these students go to other programs, what if we had our own program? And I realize it would cost a lot of money, but so is $4.5 million. And
6.5.
yeah, 6.5 with the seed cost.
Yeah.
Is that something that we could logistically do and like at least look into? And that way we wouldn't have to transport these students to other places like Freeport and Monmouth, New Gloucester.
We had the structure for that program. We had that program, and it was RETC. And that just wasn't in the cards. So absolutely can be done. Lewiston is doing it. What has been, so we do talk about this a lot. And it is something once we know, once the master facilities plan has kind of played itself out and we know what we have for space and things like that, we would love to do that. What's been difficult and what Lewiston has had to do is open up contracts to pay these folks more, because we don't pay as much as special purpose private schools. They don't have union contracts, so they can just offer, oh, you're gonna leave, we're gonna give you, here's $10,000 more dollars. So it would be really hard for us to be competitive with what these programs can pay their staff, but we would love to. And to go back to what I was saying, we do actually have structures. We have some basic structures in place to start billing. They bill section 65 and 28, and we could do that as well. We just have to have the right combination of staff to do that. I don't want to out it here, but we have some thoughts about how to dip our toe in the water with starting to bill some services. I mean, it can be cumbersome because there's a lot of supervision from like either a BCBA or a psychologist or a clinician. There's a lot of supervision, a lot of paperwork that has to be done to make sure it's done correctly. But we could potentially dip our toe in the water with a few situations to start billing for BHPs. Yeah.
It just seems like it would be more beneficial to the students so they could stay in their own community. And I can't imagine that it wouldn't save us money, even if we had to hire, the appropriate staff, obviously, and actually pay them a decent wage, which is something that they would expect. But it just would be something worth looking into to see if we could save a little bit of money.
Absolutely. Yep.
Not something that could be done, though, in time for this upcoming budget cycle.
Maybe next time I'll be saying something different. You never know.
Just to add
Yeah.
to that, I had a similar thought,
Yeah.
but I was going to tackle it from a different angle, which would be, I remember a year ago, we were warned that this would be a budget driver, and here it is staring us down. So I would imagine it's going to continue to increase these tuition reimbursements. So I guess I would just refine that question by saying, what do you think the first thing could be. And you don't need to answer it now, but when the time comes that we can start to consider this for next year, or the next year, the next year, obviously we can't bring the services of all 64 students in-house at once. But what does it look like over a phased approach? What are the first services that we could provide within our district that would start to chip away at this? And then we can ask Amanda, would it make sense financially? Would we actually save money?
Yeah, and I mean, aside from students moving in that are already placed, we got to get them young, because once they go in, it's hard to get them out. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to join cohort 2 and take over CDS services for 3 to 5 year olds, and partner with CDS and their special purpose private school programming with Auburn, so that we can start them with us. Because if they start with us, typically they can stay with us. But you know, by the time we get them in kindergarten, they might have been there a year or two. And I mean, let's face it, Margaret Murphy. I mean, who's gonna want to leave there, right? You know, they've got everything you could ever want. So we have excellent programming and excellent staff. So if we can get them when they're 3, 4, and 5, that is one way to do it. Start, yeah.
I appreciate, and obviously it's appropriate because we're talking budget, the focus on this being a cost driver. And I just want to say, I also just think it's important, and we have a moral imperative to do this work well, and it's clear that you do that well, and it's going to cost a lot of money no matter what. And we have an obligation as a public school district to meet that legally and ethically.
Yes, thank you. That's great. Let's leave it on that before anybody answers any more questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Cost Center 3, which is Career and Technical Education. And I'd like to welcome the LRTC Director, Rob Callahan, and the Assistant Director, Matt West, up. And you'll be controlling your slides.
Good evening. I'm Rob Callahan, and my good colleague Matt West, who is the Assistant Director at LRTC, primarily looks after our Auburn campus, is here to help us present this budget. I guess I would like to just begin before I turn it over to Matt. He's going to talk a little bit about sort of the program that we've rolled out to date by saying thank you to the Auburn School Committee. I'm trying to remember how many years ago that I sat here with Mr. Anir, and we sort of proposed the vision for bringing career and technical education to Auburn. It was an exciting project then, and I think it's something that has probably grown beyond what we even hoped at the time. The number of students that have taken advantage of those opportunities at Edward Little, and I'm pleased to be able to tell you that as fast as it's grown, we're looking at enrollments next year which will exceed where we were last year. We're up by over 100 applications even now, with still a month to go in our cycle. So I think students have really responded to it, and I think Matt's also going to talk about the fact that the greater community has responded. Institutions like the Auburn Fire Department and some local businesses have really jumped in and been tremendous in supporting our work and in bringing our students an experience like I believe no other exists in the state of Maine. So we're very proud of it. And again, I'm going to ask Matt to begin by just kind of bringing you up to speed where we're at in terms of programmatic offerings.
Thanks, Rob. I was here a year ago, and thank you for having us back. I could just say, well, nothing's really changed. And there are parts where, yeah, that is the truth. And as Rob said, the community of Auburn has been so welcoming to LRTC and the programs. Of course, there's the whole over the river kind of thing going on. I did wear an EL shirt to a meeting over there, but it's all in jest, and even over there, everyone is really excited about what's happening. We're very fortunate that we have been welcomed into not only the broader community, but the community within the Edward Little High School, with Mr. Anir and now with Principal Ackley. it is such a wonderful way to start the morning, knowing that we're going to be going into a place where we're welcomed. And that is, you can't put a dollar figure on that without a doubt. So I want to talk a little bit about a few of our programs and what they're doing. As you know, we moved our criminal justice program from Lewiston over to Auburn. Our teacher in that program is a 10-year veteran teacher, retired from the Portland Police Department, and he has made strides within the local community to work with the Auburn Police Department. We have been talking with the Auburn Police Department about having a cruiser donated to our program, and that would be an outstanding opportunity for our criminal justice students to be able to have that. It's not just a car, as we all know. There's a lot going on there technology-wise. So we're hoping that that's going to move forward before the end of this year, or even early next year. Because if it's a gift, we're not going to be, we'll be patient. Our hospitality and culinary arts program, we're working towards having consistent days of operation. Right. So this is a new facility, new teacher, who's doing tremendous things from our perspective already within that program. And I just want to highlight one aspect that not only for our students, for LRTC, but for Edward Little in the community. Our teacher, Justine Burns, is overseeing the Edward Little Food Pantry, and she's been working alongside the administration within the school, teachers, the Brittany over in the cafeteria, and the greater community to obtain donations for this program. And when we had our parent-teacher conferences the other night on the 5th, she had our Skills USA students that are working on a project at the parent-teacher conferences to give food out to folks who would like to take a bag of food. And all of that food was donated by local resources. I'll talk a little bit about Skills USA at the end if you don't know what that is. But our cosmetology students, we have a wonderful opportunity to be working directly with Aveda, which is a school, post-secondary school up in Augusta. We're fortunate that the teacher actually worked there, so we have a direct pipeline for all of our students to be able to go into this, as well as others, but there are not a lot of cosmetology programs around the state, and this one is like the Harvard of cosmetology schools, so we're very fortunate for that. Exciting news about early childhood is that we are starting a second-year program for early childhood education. And what that will be is mostly around our students obtaining a statewide certification, which is called the SECA. It's a SECA certification. I don't remember the acronym, do you? Yeah. It's an early childhood thing. So, but that's exciting because we have not had a second-year program. Our EMT program has obtained a state-of-the-art mannequin through a grant from the Stephen King and Tabitha Foundation, which we are very excited about. Our firefighting program continues to work with the Auburn Fire Department, and we've had Auburn Fire personnel come in and work with our students directly, which is very exciting for us. So for the fall of 2025, we are starting a collision repair program at the Edward Little High School. And we're in the process of putting out a job posting for a teacher for that program as well. In fall of 2026, we are looking to open 2 programs, which would be the CTE Exploration Health and CTE Exploration Trades. Lastly, which is not on the slide, Skills USA, we leave tomorrow, and we go to Bangor, and we have 105 students competing statewide. Students from all over the state are coming in to compete. And actually, we have somebody down to my right down there at the end who's going to be competing in culinary arts, which is very, very exciting. And best of luck to you, Connor. And of those students, 19 of them are Edward Little High School students. Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Rob.
One thing that I just quickly add on the Fall 26, the CT exploration programs, the majority of our offerings right now are for 11th and 12th grade students, quite frankly, because even with this expansion, that's all we have room for. So these two programs will be targeted specifically at 9th and 10th grade students, so they can begin to sort of think about a career pathway and get that exposure to the community. So again, we see a lot of interest in the health occupations area, and again, in the general trades. So this would be something that would give students an exposure at an earlier high school level to both of those things. So just a little bit about the career and technical education formula in the state of Maine. It is a subsidy formula, although it's a little different than the way that the K-12 standard EPS formula works. Essentially, the state looks at the array of programs that we offer every year, and there's evaluation based on, for example, a welding program's more expensive than a business program. They look at that our enrollments in those programs, the number of students that we get. They look at the square footage that we're dealing with, in terms of a physical plant. They give us per student for technology, per faculty member for PD. It rolls up into a formula that puts us at about $5.3 million in subsidy from the state. What's noticeable or what's lamentable about that is that it does not provide for things like equipment, which is a massive cost driver for us, and also transportation. And I think that is particularly been an issue for us, given the fact that we are now split really on 3 campuses, because one of the other things that we should mention is that we are providing students opportunities at Central Maine Community College, that we have students in the precision machining program, and part of the education program that Matt talked about a second ago will likely include an opportunity to take classes there as well. So we're transporting students regionally from Leavitt and Poland and Edward Little and Lewiston to that campus on a regular basis. But again, that's not accounted for in the EPS formula. And I guess it would also be true to say that most centers and regions around the state have a cost-sharing agreement, like the one that we entered into this year in our region. So what does that mean? As I said, in that upper right, you can see that we estimate our budget, and forgive me, I transposed the headers. Our LRTC budget for this year is $5.392 million. Our subsidy is about $5.308 million, and that is a variance of about $84,000 to be divided around the region as per our cost-sharing agreement. So I've broken out the various amounts, and really the way that those percentages were arrived at, that's effectively the number of enrollments that each high school gets as a result of our enrollment formula. So Edward Little is roughly about 21%, just over 21% of our enrollments. And that will move on a 2-year average. So as we adjust our programming, that we will revise that, and certainly Dr. Doris will be part of that conversation, but we will make sure that those accurately reflect the is getting. So it's true that, as you can see on that left, that bottom left, the new funding formula, when we thought about this year's budget, we're very, very aware that all of our partner schools are in an exceedingly difficult budget year. Typically, our variance has been around, $300,000 or more. So a couple of things that are noteworthy about how we arrived at the budget we did. First is that we generally just flat funded this year. I capped all of our programmatic pieces except for a couple, which I'll just talk about in a second. We also did our best to optimize the state subsidy formula. We looked hard at the way that our program array was set up, and there are advantages to having certain SIP codes active, and again, that was something we did strategically, which kind of gave us a better subsidy yield. So that shrunk that, the effect of those two things was really to shrink that variance, from 350,000 or so to 84,000. And the result for Auburn and Edward Little would be a contribution of about $18,000. The areas that are noticeable, that are drivers, that we just feel like we need to include in the budget because they are so critical, is we're rolling out that auto collision program. We're working with Moody's and local employers to make that as painless as possible. We've already purchased a number of pieces of equipment. However, things like a spray booth, the paint, and others are a cost driver. The second is that, as we all know, the consumables that a lot of our trades, particularly areas, use, steel, wood, different kinds of conduit piping, and wire in our welding area, have really been quite expensive and continuing to do so. So there's an adjustment for inflation there. And the third is something that we felt very strongly about. With a very active campus at Edward Little, we'll have roughly next year, we're estimating about 225 students there. We'll have another 25 or 30 at CMCC. And so for us, we felt strongly that we need a dedicated student services person who is working with things like career advisement, plant tours, internships, cooperative opportunities, to build those community liaisons, to assist students as they begin to college and career search in a way that is unique to their program area. So for us, we currently have one student services advisor, and again, our enrollment in program areas is over 750. We just did not feel like that was a ratio that was beneficial for students, and we feel strongly about allowing students to really sort of close the deal, so to speak. They came to us for a reason. So if that's cosmetology or if that is working in the fire service, we want to make sure that they leave us with a resume, with that exposure to those internships and those plant tours and all the things that are going to really round out that experience. And this is a staff member who would be working exclusively to do that, to help students make sure that they take that final step when they leave Edward Little High School or Poland High School or wherever, and end up in a place that's going to put them in a legitimate career pathway. So that's the reason behind that request. That's not me. So I think we would stop at that point, and if there are questions, we'd be happy to take them.
I think I just have one question. So on the next page of our packet, where we're looking at the LRTC tuition payment, it currently still has in the $74,800 number.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. We did not have the revised amount,
Okay.
and so we went ahead and put together our budget based on what we were estimating.
Yep.
And so that's going to mean that we have some extra money right now that we can either take out or use for something else.
But really, that number is now the 18,331.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
I think this is a great program. I think it's an absolute jewel for our high school. I've talked to Mr. Anier about this and how I think you guys should do a presentation on everything you do, because I think it's just something that I think this community especially, I'm not surprised that they stand behind you. It's something that is very needed. I think it's a wonderful program, so I appreciate all the work that you do. But I have just one question.
Of course.
I agree that it would probably be beneficial to your program if you did have a dedicated student service position.
Yeah.
My only question is the amount that would cost, and is that part of the budget that you have already put out?
So it is part of the budget that you're seeing there, that 5.392, yes.
Thank you.
And I guess just for all of those 3 bullet points are part of that number. So the inflationary step and all that are part of that.
I love the program. I have seen kids flourish in it, and we have amazing people working in those programs. I appreciate that we are extending it to 9th and 10th graders. I think that's important to get them involved, and hate for them to start a program and end up not liking it, but at least it's better here than spending thousands of dollars at school. One question I have is if we are looking in different ways to even reach out to some of our middle school kiddos too.
That's a great question. So the answer is absolutely yes. We have some programming during the February and April breaks that we're extending out, for example, so that we're doing an electric car build kit that we're going to allow students to build a small electric vehicle. This is sort of an exposure camp. We're going to have a construction academy for middle school students exclusively this summer that will give them pre-construction skills, and this will be students from Auburn Middle School particularly. They're going to we have a grant through the AGC, the Associated General Contractors of Maine, that are going to support us, and students are going to get paid to do this. They're going to end up with tools and work clothes and everything else. We are working on a program we're particularly proud of called Trades for Me, which is exclusively a program for young women that will happen later this spring from our local regional middle schools that will allow us to bring them onto campus for a day and give them a wide exposure to various career pathways, including those in the trades. We also have a very interesting opportunity with a program we're calling Project Ignite, which is a pre-engineering program, which we're journeying just a little bit about, and the hope would be that we would be partnering with the UMaine School of Engineering to bring pre-engineering curriculum and tools and experiences to both high school and middle school students. And I know that Ben at the middle school has really been interested in being part of that. So that's something that we envision. So I wish we could do more, but I do think it's absolutely critical because, as Mr. Ranier and I have talked about, one of the sort of the cornerstones of why we've done all this, part of it's really about retention. That we know that students that participate and successfully complete a current technical education program are more likely to graduate high school, are more likely to graduate on time. So the sooner we can get folks into those programs, 7th, 8th grade, and even earlier, we feel like we have a better chance of really holding on to them and making them successful in whatever career pathway they choose.
May I request that students come tell us about Skills USA in the future?
I would love, well, I know Mr. Dufour has a piece of hardware, a medal from last year that he won, and we're extremely proud of him. I don't want to predict or put jinx him, but I think that if I were a betting person, I would think that people would be looking at his his serving as his plates that will roll out on Friday afternoon as being the ones to beat. He's quite something. We're very proud of him.
Connor, you're also always welcome to bring samples.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we're going to move into Cost Center 5, which is student and staff support. There we go. And I will be providing you with an overview of some of these areas, and then we will end with technology with our technology director, Mr. Peter Robinson. So Cost Center 5 overall represents $4,319,556. And this, in terms of last year to this year, we have a 2.6% increase. So what's in Cost Center 5, we have the Curriculum and Instruction Office, we have summer school, our gifted and talented programs, our nursing and health services, our guidance and social workers, and library staff, as well as our technology department. Our priorities in terms of curriculum instruction are based upon the school committee's goals, and right up here, we're looking to increase the percentage of students achieving state standards, and right now we will work to maintain that 95% graduation rate. I think we just about got that last year, and that is our goal for this year, and to continue with that. And then the implementation of our core literacy and math programs that we put in place. We prioritize strong early reading instruction based on the science of reading, and providing professional development for staff based upon what staff needs are, and then supporting new teachers through our induction and mentoring program, which is called the Auburn Induction Academy, and it's led by Michelle Gagne, the director of that, and the principal out at East Auburn. Okay, moving on, we have the staff that are working out of the curriculum office, and this includes our instructional coaches. We have 3 literacy coaches and 2 math coaches, and we have a half-time administrative assistant that we share with technology. And our coaches coordinate and oversee our district programs. They're supporting high-quality instruction in our classrooms. They're responsible for designing and coordinating and providing professional development for staff. And they monitor student progress, and they evaluate the effectiveness of our programs. And moving into next year, we do not have any position changes there. The primary expenses from the Curriculum and Instruction Office include our universal screening costs, and currently we use the NWEA, which stands for Northwest Evaluation Association. It's an assessment. This is also the state assessment, but we pay additional money to be able to use this with all of our students, not just for the students in grades 3 through 8 and high school. And then we also pay for technology applications, including Freckle, Newsella, and Eye Observation, which is a teacher evaluation platform. We also fund summer curriculum and professional development work, and curriculum supplies. This year, we have to include summer school in the general fund budget. Last year, we were very fortunate to be able to use ESSER funds for our summer school, and I think local entitlement pays for some of our special ed summer school as well. So this slide is just showing you what happens at the different levels for summer school. We have an elementary program where we provide individual and small group tutoring, and we have programs that are based out of our elementary schools, as well as some of our community locations like the rec camp, the Boys and Girls Club, and different community centers. The middle school has a program that I think last year it was 4 to 6 weeks, and this program is supporting students who are not meeting standards in reading, math, and other areas. And then our secondary summer school program is based on credit recovery, and students participate in those programs until they've completed the requirements of their courses. And then we have grant-funded programs for special education, multilingual learners, and students experiencing homelessness. So again, I just want to emphasize that last year, these programs were paid for through ESSER, and this year we have to include them in the operating budget. And I also plan to apply for a Title I grant to see if we can get the elementary program funded through Title I this year. And that application is due March 21st, so we usually hear back by the beginning of May whether or not we'll receive those funds. This slide that you're seeing here includes our student support positions. This year, I just wanted you to see the positions and what schools have them. So we have 8 members of our nursing staff. We have 6 school nurses, and these are registered nurses at Fairview, Park Avenue, Sherwood Heights, Walton, Washburn, AMS, and EL. And then we have one licensed practical nurse at East Auburn and one health assistant at Walton. We have 4 gifted and talented teachers in the district, and they are located at various schools, and they work at more than one school. So we have one at Fairview and Edward Little, one at Sherwood Heights, East Auburn, and Washburn, one that splits between Park Avenue and Walton, and we have one at Auburn Middle School. And then looking at our guidance staff, for guidance counselors, currently we have 11 guidance counselors. East Auburn has a half-time position. Fairview has 1.5 positions. And then Park Avenue, Sherwood Heights, Walton, Washburn, and AMS all have 1 guidance counselor. And then Edward Little High School has 4 guidance counselors. And we also have a director of guidance, and she is K-12. She's housed at EL, but she works with all of the guidance staff. In terms of social workers, we have 2 currently. It's actually 2.3, I think. We have 1 at AMS, and then there's a social worker that works in the Saddleback program that also provides some support to the general education population there. And then we have 1 social worker at Edward Little High School. And then moving on to the library staff, we have 1 librarian in the district right now at Edward Little High School. And then we have 8 library ed tech 3s, and that includes all of our elementary schools, AMS and EL.
Just wondering about the number of guidance counselors at AMS. Was that previously more than 1?
Previously, we had 2 guidance counselors there, and that is one of the positions that we are eliminating this year. All right, we are moving on. I wanted to include our grant-funded positions this year. We've been talking a little bit about federal funds and how stable are they. And right now, in terms of our ESEA grant, which is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, we are being told that we should expect the status quo for next year. And that looking ahead, we need to be thinking about potentially cutting positions, but not next year, not in FY26. So in terms of Title I, we are currently funding 10 positions. We have our homeless foster care McKinney-Vento liaison, which is Sasha and
Anastasia.
Thank you. Which is Sasha. We all know Sasha. She does a wonderful job there. And then we have 9 literacy interventionist positions. We have 3 at Park Avenue, 3 at Sherwood Heights, 2 at Washburn, and 1 at Walton. And I have a little definition up there for literacy interventionist, because whenever we share information, people always ask, what is a literacy interventionist? So a literacy interventionist is a teacher that is highly trained, that's an expert, and who specializes in improving students' reading skills. So they work with students in reading and writing. And then in terms of Title II, we've talked about this for next year, 2 class size reduction positions in that grant. And that is the curriculum instruction, plus an overview of some of the other areas before we head into technology. Any questions?
What we heard last week was that they would like another math coach, because there's 1 for the 6 schools. Any possibility of that happening?
I think that's something that we can discuss when we get to the end of all of the budget presentations. You know, we just heard from Rob Callahan and Matt West, and our expected amount there for the cost sharing is a lot less than what we anticipated. So that gives us a little wiggle room there. So we could definitely come up with what would it cost, and then we could discuss that.
I have a question about that as well. Since the literacy interventionists can fall under Title I, is that something that we could maybe try to see if we could get the math interventionists to fall under Title I, if we can get a grant for that?
That's a great question. I would would not go there right now just because we're not sure whether or not we're going to see an increase in funding down the road with our title grants. Something that we could consider. We typically don't receive our allocations until June, sometimes close to July even. So it's hard to know what our allocations are going to be yet for the next school year. Welcome. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I'd like to welcome our technology director, Mr. Peter Robinson.
Good evening. Feels like I was just here. So I'm going to do an overview of the technology budget and some information about the technology that we have in service. It's largely unchanged from last year. There are a few changes that I'll highlight as we go through. So the inventory, we have about 3,500 iPads. These are our primary student devices. They're assigned one-to-one in grades K through 12. That's, as you may remember, last year we were in that transition of moving from laptops to iPads at high school. That's all complete. And then we have some assigned shared in preschool classrooms, and teachers can have an iPad if they would like for instructional purposes as well as their laptop. Grades 5 through 9 are funded through the state Maine Learning Technology Initiative program. We will this summer refresh the 8th grade devices through this year's allocation through MLTI. We have about 500 Macs, mostly laptops assigned to staff. There are a few desktops that are in places like libraries where obviously portability is not a requirement. The infrastructure, the sort of the behind-the-scenes pieces that we have that hopefully people are unaware of, because when they become aware of these things, it usually means something's not working the way it's supposed to. We have our networks. You know, we've got all of our buildings have Wi-Fi across the building. Our firewall that hopefully protects us from some of the things on the internet that we don't want coming in. And we have a lot of switches controlling all of that network equipment. The security system, almost 300 CCTV cameras, servers to store all of that information and also control the door access. 218 LCD projectors in classrooms. We have our phone systems with 7 controllers and 400 actual handsets in classrooms and office spaces. And our servers, we've actually reduced this over the years. We've moved a fair amount of things into the cloud. We do still have some things that are locally hosted. Our currently ADS Pro Fund is hosted locally. The new Munis system will be cloud-based. I think, though, we will need to retain those Pro Fund servers for some time because of historical data that we will need. PowerSchool is locally hosted. We have some behind-the-scenes services that you have to run on a network in order for it to function, DNS. That's a couple of very basic servers. Our food service system, currently NutriKids, that is locally hosted. That's transitioning to a new system called Mosaic, which is cloud-based. HVAC controllers, also locally hosted, and our ClassLink roster server, which if we didn't have that, we would basically have to manage all of our student accounts for all of their applications that they use in Google manually. So student comes in, you have to sit down and create the account. Student leaves, you have to decommission it. This handles all of that for us, so it's a huge time saver. My team, actually, before we get into that, let me see if there are any questions on the inventory piece, and then I'll get into that. No? Okay. So my team, myself as director, I have a network administrator, David Strome, 2 district technicians. They also run the video system along with Dave here. Nathaniel Proctor's back there with Austin Bousquet, who's our other district technician. Our software support specialist, Stephanie Weber, she was an instructional coach in technology. Last year we, as you may recall, reduced that. The 2 positions that we had there, created this software support specialist. She really supports all of the classroom-based applications and then some. I don't know how she manages to juggle all of it, but she somehow does. We have Tanner Ramick, who's an EdTech 3 at EL, and Dylan Gelbert at AMS. They are the kind of first point of contact when something goes wrong with an iPad. The student will come into the tech office at one of those schools and hopefully get some help. We have some students in our tech team at EL now as well who assist with that. They're an incredible resource for us. The elementary schools all have a technology rep, and Franklin, I should say as well, have a technology rep who gets a stipend. Those are regular teachers. They're stipended to assist with technology when they can, and also attend a monthly technology meeting where we sort of share information that's important at the district level. And then the admin assistant that we share with the Office of Academic Affairs, and I will say that, you know, we have half a position each, and I think we get way more than one position out of Sarah McFarland. She is an incredible resource for all of us. The budget for this year, hardware repairs, this is when it breaks, we have to fix it. Some of those iPads, the MLTI iPads and the high school iPads, are still covered by Apple Care Plus, so those repairs are actually a covered expense that we don't have to pay for. But most of the iPads in the lower elementary grades are not covered, so when they break, we have to pay for repairs or replacement. Ongoing license subscriptions and support contracts, that is things like Power School. The DOE pays for the basic Power School student information system. We add on to that Performance Matters, which is an analytics program to look at student achievement. We add on a forms and enrollment system so that parents can fill out forms and do enrollments online. Some other data management pieces that help us do reporting, basically. It pays for support contracts for all of our networking equipment, the support contracts for the ADS Pro Fund was in there. That's actually coming out now. We've moved that to the Munis expenses moved to the business office. We've moved those funds into supporting the CCTV system because that was really one of those things that was just sort of sitting there and it wasn't having any upgrades done to it. So as a result, we had a lot of older camera equipment that we really need to have a program in place to replace those pieces as they age out. Mileage reimbursement for the technicians as they travel around the district. Training and professional development, some of that goes to paying for a seat at the Maine Technology Educators Association conference every year that we send a person from each school to go to that and hopefully bring back information that they can share with their building. And then the rest is for people in the technology department who need to certify in various different programs for supporting the things that they support. We pay for ACTEM, which is the Association of Computer Technology Educators of Maine membership. That's a district-wide membership for $50, and it gets us a lot of really steep discounts on software licensing and that kind of thing. And office supplies for the technology office over at Franklin. And that's the end of the technology section. Any questions? Adam.
I think,
Thank
Dave's
you.
got a question first.
Thanks. I was wondering, it's actually, I guess, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent because it's not as budgetary as, I guess, conceptual, but if you could talk more about the student participation in the tech team, what are the ways that we're creating the next generation of tech experts?
I love to talk about the student tech team. That's one of the things that, Mr. O'Neill will tell you that I was pushing for having a student tech team for years, and we just didn't have the space in the old building. And now we have a tech office that's big enough to be able to do this. So they come in during their study halls. We usually have a couple of students there. They answer the phone, so they're taking calls and doing sort of first level tier 1 assistance to somebody who's calling and saying, hey, my projector's not working. They'll try to solve that over the phone. Sometimes they will go to the classroom and assist. If it goes beyond their level of skill and access, because obviously they don't have admin passwords and things like that, then they pass that on to the tech person in the room and he will handle it. So it's really tier 1 support. We have a district-wide phone line that we've tried to encourage people to call in from other schools, but we haven't so far been really successful in getting people to actually utilize that, but I have high hopes.
As someone who was taught how to use their smartboard by a 3rd grader, I do appreciate the tech team. My question was about the technology reps for the the elementary schools. Do you feel like that is sufficient enough to get those needs met in those elementary schools?
I mean, what really happens is the 2 district level technicians do a lot of the the really hands-on troubleshooting and fixing in the elementary schools. I used to teach 6th grade a long time ago at Fairview, and I was the technology rep for that building. And I can tell you that it ended up being a lot of additional work. You know, you'd come in the morning thinking you were going to prep for the science lesson you were doing that day, and there'd be 2 people waiting outside your door who couldn't print. And it can take an immense amount of time. So we try to make sure that those teachers can set some boundaries and say, you know, I have to focus on my classroom because that's my main job here. And please, let's put in a ticket and have one of the technicians come over and take care of that issue. If it's something quick and easy, they can take care of it. They do things like reset student Google passwords, which, you know, that's a quick and easy thing for them to do, and it saves the teacher from having to put in a ticket and wait for somebody to get to it.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. That's yeah. That concludes our presentation for
Okay.
tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to our school committee student representatives report. Connor, do you have a report tonight?
I did not, but I would like to thank all of you just for the good wishes on Friday. As we get closer, the stress just keeps piling up, but you know, I think it will be fine. And as for a presentation on skills, that will be coming in the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to wait until it was done, until that, you know, we present it. And then I'm actually working with Mr. Callahan on putting together an LRTC presentation. There's just a lot going into it, so I want to make sure that I'm not taking up all your time on top of budget and then filtering into another presentation that would take a while.
Sounds good. Thank
I think
you.
I can speak for all of us. Just focus on you right now.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report, Dr. Doris.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Albert. I would like to provide you with an update on our March workshop day plans. We are excited to hold a district-wide training with all staff, including our nutrition and transportation departments, as well as central office staff. All staff will be participating in a Bridges Out of Poverty workshop on Friday, March 21st from 8 to 2:30 at Edward Little High School. And we're excited to be in the Donald M. Gay Performing Arts Center. So the whole district will be there. And this training is developed by Dr. Ruby Payne. You may have heard of her. And it will be led by a certified facilitator named Prudence Pease. And we are really fortunate to have Prudence returning to the district. She provided a similar training for us in 2017. So she will provide our staff with insights and strategies to better understand and address poverty within our schools and community. Topics will include the causes of poverty, mental models across economic classes, and tools for building relationships and social capital. We are looking forward to this opportunity to come together as a district-wide team and focus on ways to better serve our students, families, and community. And all of our school committee members here tonight are invited to attend, and I've provided you with a flyer if you would like to come. Love to have you there.
Great.
And that's it for me tonight.
Thank you. Moving on, I do not have a chairperson's report tonight, so moving on to our city council update. Adam.
Not much to update on other than on Monday, the 17th, we will get our first taste of the municipal budget. So that'll be the city manager's budget presentation on the 17th. And then we'll be workshopping again on the 24th to continue that. Also, Connor, congratulations for Friday. Good luck. One word, leftovers. Make some extra. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you. For our committee reports, so the agenda for the finance subcommittee meeting, which was earlier today, is linked. We'll have minutes on next week's agenda for that. The curriculum subcommittee minutes are linked. Quinn, I think you're going to give us an update on those.
Yeah, there was a slide in the budget presentation about our Title I through IV grants. We had about 5 minutes on that here. We had about 45 minutes on it at the curriculum committee meeting. It was very informative.
Great, thank you. So if you want more information, feel free to read the minutes that are linked in the agenda. And then we have the facilities subcommittee agenda, which that next meeting is tomorrow night. All right, moving on, we do not have any old business. We do not have any new business. We have all of our upcoming meetings listed with our next school committee budget meeting next Wednesday night. Do I have any other future agenda items and requests for information? Quinn?
I would love to understand what the Gifted and Talented program is and does and how many students it serves.
Okay. I think Dr. Doris
Yeah,
can
we'll
probably
get that
do
information for you.
Yep. And Pat?
They mentioned the March 17th budget workshop from the city council. Are we expected to go, or is it too early for us to go?
I do not believe we are expected to go, but Adam, can you confirm
Yeah,
that?
I don't believe it's a technical joint session
Yeah.
or anything like that, but if you're excited to see what the city's proposed increase is, you'll be watching TV next Monday. Yeah.
All right, if we don't have any other items or requests for information, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Quinn and seconded by Pam. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 7:22. Thank you.